When Beth was itty bitty baby on four machines, my husband actually said, "Why can't you get over it and move on?" Looking back now, I understand what was going on.
Mm.
But when we don't know and people invalidate us and they say, "You just need to be stronger, just think your way out of it," it's not that simple.
Welcome to the Faith Over Fear podcast, where we share powerful truths to quiet anxiety, big and small. I'm Carol McCracken. And if you've ever found yourself thinking, why am I struggling with this? If you've ever prayed, tried to work on yourself, and you're still anxious and you're still overwhelmed, still fighting the same internal battles, you're not alone and you're not doing something wrong. One of the damaging lies that we believe is that if I were stronger in my faith, I wouldn't be struggling. But the truth is, healing isn't about arriving at perfect peace. It's about learning how to meet God in the middle of the struggle, moment by moment. And today's conversation is going to help you do exactly that. Today, you're going to walk away with some practical tools to calm your body when anxiety rises, and you're going to have a Christ-centered way to stay present instead of spiraling. And you're going to have one powerful shift that can move you out of isolation into real healing. We're having this conversation with someone who hasn't just studied this, she's lived it. Kristen's walked through years of mental health challenges, including over a decade of therapy, tools, and treatment. And she's discovered it is not a quick fix, but something far more sustainable and honest and hopeful. So if you've ever felt stuck, discouraged, or quietly wondering if you'll ever get past what you're facing, stay with us, because this conversation might change the way that you see your struggle and the way that you experience God in it. Kristen, I am so glad that you're here with us.
Thank you so much, Carol, for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I would like to know exactly how you got here. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
It's been a journey. Well, I started out, met my husband. We've been married 24 years. We both in college were planning to go into ministry full time. And then we started having a family and it started getting a little complicated. And then we had our daughter who has a severe chromosomal deletion. And pretty soon after she came home from the NICU, I began to really struggle, which is to put it mildly. I spiraled into a faith and mental health crisis, which the two go together. And the more I became depressed, the more my faith struggles, and it became this vicious cycle. I ended up at about the lowest point you can get. I didn't know how I was going to live life as miserable and stressed out as I was. But I chose to trust God. I chose to trust him, even though I couldn't understand how he could be good and allow my daughter and family to suffer. I didn't know how I was going to get out of this deep, deep pit of depression and anxiety. But I chose to have faith and realized for the first time in my life, that is what faith is. So that began my journey of over a decade, like you said, of seeking mental health treatment and pastoral counseling and learning skills to meet with God throughout the day, even in my struggles and pain, and simple coping skills. And here I am. I decided to go back to grad school to help other people not suffer like I did, because there are practical ways to thrive.
I'm glad to hear about that, and I'm glad you made it through like you did. Why do we struggle with our struggles?
It's so complicated and it just compounds. The stress we are under is historical in the US. That already starts to wear down on you mentally and physically and spiritually. And then when we struggle, we can begin to have blinders, and it's hard to see where God has worked in our past and the potential of how he can work in the future. And the more we struggle, the more we feel like we have to do something. The irony is, the more we struggle, the better position we're in to depend on God.
I think some of the listeners are in something that I've been. And don't you ever get to a point where you think, I should be past this point by now? And what do you do with that?
Yes. When Beth was itty bitty baby on four machines, my husband actually said that to me. Why can't you get over it and move on?
Yeah.
Looking back now, and after all the years of extensive research, I understand what was going on. I was in a trauma response, I was in chronic grief. But when we don't know and people invalidate us and they say, "You just need to be stronger. Why are you struggling like this? Just think your way out of it." It's not that simple.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When people tell you you should be past something, is it that they don't understand our situation, or is it they're uncomfortable and they don't know what to deal with?
I think it's all of the above. When we don't understand, that can cause fear, especially around mental health in the church. Yes. And so that is so complicated and something I'm passionate about
Yeah,
because I didn't seek treatment. Todd was actually a youth pastor at the time. I was so angry with God. I didn't even want to go to church. We were in a small town. What would people think if I
right,
went to therapy?
right.
And they knew we were struggling. So I battled. I finally had to make that decision. You know what? I've got to do this for me and my family. I had to get past the point of worrying about judgment and what other people thought because they really had no idea what was going on in my and our family's life.
Sometimes people don't understand exactly what it's like because we don't normalize it, I think. I am the same way. I am in ministry. I am a pastor. I have a child with 4 separate disorders, and nobody writes a book on how you should deal with that sort of thing. It's like uncharted territory that you're going through. I did not cope very well myself. I chose to numb. I had the stigma on myself too that I should be over it. So I think what you're hitting on, there's some education that needs to be had. And I admire you so much because you're educating right now as we're talking.
People suffer in silence and isolation and guilt and then the shame
Yes.
and then the place where we are supposed to be able to find healing. A lot of times we feel if we go to church and churches aren't trained in mental health, and if the faith beliefs are so staunch that, we shouldn't struggle with mental health because we just need to have stronger faith, we struggle more and become more isolated.
And that's key. That isolation, I think, was to my destruction. The community is so very important in part of that. And that's why I think normalizing, we go to a doctor if we're physically sick. So why would we think the erroneous belief that if somebody is struggling with mental health, that they'll never get better?
Or that the only way they'll get better is if their faith is stronger and God heals them.
That's it.
Well, I give the example. If you have diabetes, would you stop taking your medicine? Or if there was a medicine that could help you, would you take it? Mental health is a biological, neurological, physical. My brain literally rewired detrimentally because of the stress and the trauma. And I have had to work really hard to rewire those connections and restabilize my chemicals in my brain. Yes, and mental health and faith are in tandem. Yes, God renews our mind. The Holy Spirit renews our thoughts. We
Yeah.
also need to do some work. We
Yes.
have to look at what those thoughts are that make us hopeless. So it's a lot more complicated than I think the church likes to make it.
I think that's a very good point. You went through some things that we discussed off camera that I'd like to share because I think that they would be really helpful. You began to speak of tools, what actually helps if you find yourself in that kind of situation. You spoke of a grounding technique. What was it? Progressive muscle relaxation, something like that?
Yeah, so basically mindfulness,
Okay.
which that word can elicit a lot of different feelings in the Christian community. It's basically being in the present moment inside your body with your thoughts, with the awareness of Christ with you in the present moment and at the center of your being with every breath. And when we allow God to help us become aware of the tension and the strain in our shoulders, and we release that stress. And at the same time, do physical tensing and releasing. We are whole beings.
Right.
We are spiritual, physical, mental, emotional. And when we allow God to be present with us in our whole beings, that's where we can find healing, peace, and more joy.
How would that work? If somebody were to try that out, is that something you can explain?
It's actually more simple than we make it. I have created videos to guide people through this. It's so simple, but so powerful. The most basic is learning how to do deep breathing the proper way. We don't breathe properly.
Okay.
A lot of times when we're stressed, we breathe with our upper chest as opposed to using our diaphragm. It feels counterintuitive, but when we do proper deep breathing, we actually breathe with our belly, abdomen, and through our nose. When we exhale through our mouth. So imagine a balloon inflating and deflating all from your belly. That's the most basic. That literally tells our brains and bodies the stress is gone. It activates our parasympathetic nervous system and everything kind of calms down. When we breathe with a breath prayer, with
Okay.
scripture as our focus, we are literally aware of God in our breath, which calms us. And progressive muscle relaxation, in the physiology of that, people like squeeze their fists when they're stressed.
Yeah.
There's a reason, but we don't release that tension. So it is a physical reaction of when we tense, like you're squeezing all the juice out of a lemon and then release. It has this effect on your central nervous system. So I guide people starting at your toes and tensing, releasing each muscle group and aware of God's presence. I feel pain in my knees. Help me, be with me in this pain. The pain may not go away, but God is with us in our whole being, and releasing that stress and tension to God, our worries, releasing those worries.
I love it. God is with us. There's a sense of community right there. And it sounds like it's something that we can do almost any time. Like in the workplace, we have a boss or something that's put us on high stress or something like that. We could do it right there, couldn't we?
We could. It helps clear our minds. So when we're stressed, we automatically go into that fight or flight or freeze.
Yes, yes.
And we all respond differently to stress based on our history and if we have trauma. So let's say your boss comes up, you're either going to freeze or you're going to want to like get out of the situation or you're going to immediately snap back. Even in a conversation, it doesn't have to be noticeable, but taking those slow, deep breaths, squeezing and relaxing your hands, you can think clearer, respond more calmly and effectively. The thing is, a lot of times we realize when we're stressed, I'm holding my breath. If I do some deep breaths, I can calm down. But to be effective, we do this throughout the day
Ah,
to manage our stress, because the more stressed we are, the more we don't manage it, cortisol builds up, all these stress hormones, it rewires your brain. If we practice simple deep breathing, full mindfulness exercises throughout the day,
mhm.
that keeps our base level lower.
So you're saying then that God is meeting us not just in our mind, but in our body too, with that, right?
And our thoughts as well. I tell parents, it's kind of like a bell of reminder to practice mindfulness. If your child cries, if your child laughs, practice mindfulness. If you're stopped at a stoplight, practice mindfulness and become aware of your breath, where you are in the present moment, and that God is with you throughout the day.
I love that. That's something that can be practiced pretty much anywhere,
Yes.
anytime. So if somebody is saying, take the pause, is that part of it?
Yes, there's different acronyms for it. A lot of times our mind's in the future. That's where anxiety starts. I'm stopped at a stoplight and here's my to-do list. When we pause and we notice, oh, I'm actually in the car. I'm driving. You know how we drive mindlessly and then we can't remember getting there? Well, when we're in the present moment and we're like, oh, I'm at this street. There's these cars there. Maybe the radio was on. I wasn't even listening. That starts to get our brains back to using our frontal lobe and not the emotional center where we get stressed and anxious. And just becoming aware, I'm here. Yes, I'm on the way to this appointment, but right now I'm in this moment.
So you're anchoring to God in real time.
In the present moment and Christ-centered awareness in our bodies, in our thoughts, realizing, why am I so anxious? Okay, well, I have this thought. I'm going to be late to this appointment. I feel embarrassed. I'm going to be late. And then we start to realize all these thoughts and emotions that have built up and are causing us to be stressed. When we become aware and don't try to fight it anymore, we actually embrace what's going on that's stressful, what emotions are making us upset, then the intensity lowers.
That's our differentiator. It's inviting God into that moment. That's great. Well, on that note, a quick break to hear from today's sponsor.